you know what the fuck? Let's talk about this dad who killed the cop. I feel like that's so. For context, anybody who hasn't heard it, I'm going to give my current understanding of the circumstances. You know, I don't really read the whole shit. I just go off the clips that I've seen, and so y'all fill out the rest. But basically, and I'm not going to show the video of the kid getting shot, but basically, police shoot and kill this kid who's, or 18-year-old who's running away. There's maybe like a drug stop or something like that. They say that he had a gun and that he had aimed it at them. After the fact, there was a gun found, but the video, it doesn't clearly kind of show him aiming it at them. It seems like he's largely fleeing. They shoot him, I believe, in the back. He dies. His father, a few days later, rams a officer who is part of that same police force, not specifically the one who shot him, but another member of that police force, killing that officer. He is now on trial for that, alleged killing.
That's tough. I mean, that's beyond. I mean, words can't even describe them. That's beyond just tough. I don't know, bro. I don't at this point, because like, how many more times do we, can we cover like stories like this?
Oh yeah,
and you know what I'm saying, like with something new to say, because it just happens so often. But I guess this time, like, the person like decided to take matters into their own hands, but killed.
Allegedly,
yeah. Can you really say allegedly? Because I mean, like,
unless you're convicted, it's alleged. Yeah.
Well, I mean, oh yeah, true that. He allegedly, struck down another officer that was doing traffic, which is fucked up. And honestly, I can't even really express how I truly feel, because like just the climate right now is crazy. And like the shit that I see like police doing, like the shit that they're getting off on, like ICE, some of them ICE videos is insane.
Yeah.
So they about to put Buddy under the jail.
Oh yeah, I don't know if he'll even survive, because I know he'll be getting tortured, probably already is being subjected to inhumane circumstances. You know what I'm saying? I know they riding rough to the fucking police thing, and just roughing him up and exchanging cells, all that kind of shit, because he's got injuries on him even in that video. So that's not surprising. That said, I think I'm similarly ambivalent on it, because at first I thought that he killed the cop who killed his son, and I was kind of like, fair game, cool, whatever. I'm not mad at that. But he's killed just another member of that same police force. And the argument that people kind of make in favor is something like, well, look, this is something akin to war between the state and the people, where it's like you've got a state-sanctioned, state-funded force that frequently murders our people. This is a thing that's been going on consistently for a long time. It's an onslaught. It's a slow occupation. So in war, you have casualties of this kind. So it doesn't really make sense to judge somebody fighting back in that way. And I'm somewhat, I guess it depends on what kind of moral compass. Are you looking at this as this is war in the context of war, which I think is a fair framing, or is this misplaced vigilante mob justice, where you're just attacking, you know what I'm saying? Somebody from the McCluskeys killed your cousin, so you're going to kill a random one of their, clan who didn't even do anything in the particular altercation. It gets a lot muddier once the state's involved. So I think I'm also I'm ambivalent. I don't know if you are.
It's tough because like it's a lot of emotions that kind of go into it. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, like, if as a decent human being, like, you don't want to see people just senselessly murder or just lose their life. But it's just like when you got all this other shit like layered on top of it, and then you're like forced to like think about, well, what would you have done in this situation? Or well, I mean, they've been doing this to us for so long, and then it kind of gets you start thinking in a fucked up space. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we shouldn't have to think about things like that, but we kind of are constantly being put in a position to where it's like, okay, people getting tired, so you got to fight back, or somebody gonna push back. Not saying that what he did was right, because I mean, at the end of the day, that was not the person that took his son's life. So yeah, bro. I don't know.
Then it kind of goes back to the ACAB shit, which I wouldn't say I'm entirely convinced by that, but I understand the argument of saying, well, you decided to join a state force that historically and currently is not built to serve most of the community, that largely protects property and is guilty, at least at a national level, of murdering across ethnic lines. So if you join that, that's a crime in and of itself. This is not what I'm saying, but this is what the argument for the ACAB thing is. So it's like, yeah, look, if one of your co-soldiers does this and consequences come against the entire force, then it's like you shouldn't have signed up to be a cop. But I also think, maybe there's cops that, they sign up for all different kinds of reasons. You want to protect the community, da 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 da. It's a job, cool. Maybe you haven't done anything fucked up. Maybe you do hold your fellow policemen accountable. There are plenty, though most of those don't last very long in the police force, from what I've seen. So I think that's maybe fair too. I don't know the fellow who was, I was about to say allegedly killed, but the fellow who was killed. So
yeah, because this kind of reminds me of, I guess, like another like conversation that's kind of going on alongside like this situation is the three police officers, or the three ex-police officers who murdered Tyre Nichols were found not guilty. And that was extremely just like cut and clear. That dude was running away. He was unarmed. He was crying for his mama. Like he was like around, he wasn't far away from his mom's crib. And like he was actually like screaming for his mom for help. And they beat him to death.
Oh, and this was the video of the black cops beating that guy slowly to death over the course of like 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Because he had like slept with one of their. Wow. And he was the one who like, there was like allegations of he had slept with one of their partners or something like that. And this was really a revenge killing.
Yeah, because this happened like a couple years ago. 2023 maybe.
Yeah, it happened. It happened a while back. Yeah.
They got found, and the crazy thing is, them niggas is black. Like the cops is black.
Well, that's where the ACAB shit comes into, because it's state soldiers of all races.
Yeah,
everybody gets co-opted into it. They sent niggas into Vietnam. They sent niggas into fucking Iraq. There's black people can operate in service of the system
proudly, too happily. I don't know. It's because it's basically just cops, police are really not here to protect and serve. Like that's some bullshit. Like they are not
crazy,
here to protect
not guilty, because they've been in prison this whole time, right? Like being held for their sentencing.
I don't know. I don't know that much. I know, but nigga, you could just do a quick Google search. Nigga, no, you can't, because I'm trying to talk and do shit at the same time.
It's hard. I need an AI assistant for this shit.
Yeah, for real. Where are they? What's up, folks? It's about that time again for us to tell you about our new card game. In all seriousness, just like the podcast, this game has got range. So boom, you get to choose whether you want to take the conversation either in a more serious, thoughtful direction or in a completely fun and nonsensical one. You control the narrative and steer the ship of the conversations at the dinner party, on dates, or just hanging out with your friends. This game has got double the fun of the last card game, with over 100 prompts to have you prepared for some of the deepest and dumbest conversations of your life. Member channels get 10% off, so be sure to grab your deck at shop.wavingtheredflag.com, as orders will be shipping soon. So cop that. Were they? Yeah, I'm not seeing if they were like in jail the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh no, Bean and Smith are not behind bars as they wait for sentencing, but they do have court-ordered restrictions. Smith's attorney asked Judge Norris if those restrictions could be loosened. Judge Norris said he would consider it. Haley was escorted into the courtroom, blah, 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 blah. So that's 2 out of the 5.
Were not held, so they got bail or whatever, and so they were chilling at home waiting for their sentencing.
Yeah, and the other 3 just.
But they said they were waiting for sentencing. So what did they get convicted of?
Oh, wait, did it say sentencing? Because I just said that. Is that what it said?
Josh also said sentencing. I don't know if that's.
Oh, okay.
The attorney argued for him, says something during sentences that the exact date for sentencing each of the former officers has not been set. Martin and Mills will get the last 2 days of sentencing. Motions were filed to move sentencing. Bean's attorney argued the former officer may say something during sentencing that could impact the state trial for murder charges. Bean, Smith, and Haley were all in court for the motion. Yeah, this is not saying anything regarding to like what the actual sentencing was.
But as you talked about earlier, so we just know it's not murder.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Like,
because I watched the entire video, and it's like, under no other circumstances is this not like it's a lynching. Like, it was nothing other than that. Like the most graphic kind. It's like, it was very, very cut and dry. Like, they were not trying to detain him. They were striking him repeatedly. Like they beat a person to death. It was nothing other than that.
Yeah. So I don't understand like how there's video. Man, it's clearly not a threat to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's crying for help, and it's not murder. Like, what is that then?
Yeah, well, I'm curious who the. I mean, I wonder what happened in the courtroom because this is 12 people who saw that video, saw those things, and came to this conclusion unanimously over time. So I'm wondering what convinced them.
Yeah.
Were they just all white? Were they all black and conservative? Like, what was was it a combination?
Because I don't even know if it really makes sense. Like, I mean, like if it was the race of the jury, because like most of the cops that was really involved in it, they were black. So I mean, like
it was all black, yeah,
all white jury, unless like good job.
I feel like pro Black Death. I mean, no, I feel like it could circle back around. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, yeah, exactly. Pro police, pro black, pro killing black people, pro. You know what I'm saying? And I could see. I'm curious of what the thinking is. So I think race would definitely play a part. Black, white, the other races. You know, yeah. I don't know. Is there a way to find that out?
I mean,
what the minutes of a court proceeding, what evidence was, because I don't know, do we as citizens have the right to the evidence that's in the entirety of a finished court proceeding? Yeah. So how do we find that out? Because it's very easy to, watch a news cycle and go, here's the one piece of evidence that I saw. And then, they came to this conclusion, which I didn't. And it's like, okay, well, you haven't experienced the same thing of, days and days and weeks and months of deliberation and cross-examination and blah, blah, blah that they have. So it'd be good to get that context to see, are they seeing something different than us? Or at the very least, how were they swayed against such overwhelming evidence?
I got it. So I just asked ChatGPT.
Good call.
Okay, so the jury's decision appeared to hinge on several factors. Defense arguments. Attorneys for Bean and Smith contended that their clients acted with department policies and national policing standards. They argued that the officers were attempting to restrain Nichols, who they claimed was resisting arrest, and that any force used was not excessive. Additionally, the defense portrayed Emmett Martin, another officer who had already pleaded guilty and testified for the prosecution, as the primary aggressor in the incident. Jury reluctance. Legal experts note that juries are often hesitant to convict police officers in on-duty incidents. Even when video evidence is compelling, this reluctance stems from the high burden of proof required in criminal cases and a general defense to law enforcement's split-second decision-making in high-stress situations. Despite the acquittals of the most severe charges, the obstruction of justice convictions mean that Bean, Haley, and Smith each face up to 20 years in prison. Sentencing is scheduled for January. The outcome has sparked renewed calls for police reform and highlighted ongoing concerns about accountability within law enforcement agencies. Civil rights leaders and community members have expressed disappointment, viewing the verdicts as indicative of systemic issues in the justice system.
Wait, so they were found guilty, but just not of. So what things were they found guilty of? Was this like aggravated assault or something like that? But they're not found guilty of the murder. So and one of them pleaded guilty. Yeah, because I did see that in the Wikipedia article. One of them pleaded guilty already. So it's like the jury has gone like, yeah, he's the one who got the closest to the murder. He did the most of the shit that was beyond what you're allowed to. And the other two cops, they less so. So we're allowing them to walk. I mean, I'm open to that argument if that's the case. And you go, look, one of them is guilty of murder. One of the other two are guilty of aggravated assault and maybe like being accomplices to murder or something like that.
If that's what's happened. In the federal trial concerning the death of Tyre Nichols, 3 former Memphis police officers, Darius Bean, Demetrius Haley, and Justin Smith, were convicted on specific charges related to their actions during and after the incident. Convictions was witness tampering. All 3 officers were found guilty of obstruction of justice through witness tampering. This conviction stemmed from their efforts to cover up the use of excessive force against Nichols by omitting material information and providing misleading and false statements to their supervisor, lieutenant, and MPD detective tasked with documenting the incident. The next, civil rights violations, Demetrius Haley only. Haley was convicted of violating Nichols' civil rights by using excessive force that resulted in bodily injury. He was also found guilty of being deliberately indifferent to Nichols' serious medical needs, which is a separate civil rights violation. Also, conspiracy to commit witness tampering, Demetrius Haley only. Haley was additionally convicted of conspiring to commit witness tampering, a charge that the other 2 officers were acquitted of. Acquittals: Bean and Smith were acquitted of all civil rights charges, including those related to the excessive force and failure to intervene. That's crazy. Haley was acquitted of the more severe charge of violating Nicholas's civil rights, causing death, but was convicted on the lesser charge involving bodily injury. sentencing each officer faces significant potential prison time for their convictions.
To some extent, I'm looking at that and going like, well, first of all, several of those charges require the admission of excessive force. So it's like they're guilty of crimes that require them to have used excessive force, but they were found not guilty of excessive force in other crimes, which doesn't make sense. Like, we caused bodily injury to a person who died, but we didn't kill them. Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, but
That
I mean,
strange.
and I do think that this would be one of those situations where either one of the three of us probably could do more research or have somebody from that perspective but it's like the difference between the different statutes of murder, murder 1, murder 2, murder 3 versus manslaughter. Like, there are legal definitions.
How much intention you had.
There are legal definitions on what constitutes murder versus murder 1 versus anything less than that. You know what I mean?
Manslaughter. But that's what kind of still sticks out to me, because all of what you read off just then is civil rights violations, which it sounds like they weren't charged with anything like manslaughter or first degree murder or second degree murder, any of those kinds of standard homicide charges. So that to me stands out, especially considering the fact that they were found guilty of civil rights violations that were as a result of excessive force use that did lead to bodily harm, and at least one of them was found guilty of that. So it seems like somewhere on that spectrum between assault and second degree murder, whatever the highest one is, first degree murder. And then it seems like they should have been further along on that spectrum to me.
And then oftentimes what you'll find is prosecutors will push for what they think they can get.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they
don't even bother with the higher charge.
Exactly, because you go for the higher charge, you lose. Now they get nothing.
Yes.
So I'm going to get what I think that is feasible for me to get in a system that tends to protect police officers from a very foundational level. So like when we're talking about like jury selection. So if I were picking a jury of this, you know who I would have stacked the jury with?
Who that?
Hey, Josh.
Hello.
You know what's something I look forward to?
Not really, no.
Nobody knows what you look forward to. Yeah,
That's true. So I'm gonna let them know. Trips to the barbershop, Josh. I love them. I love the community. I love the conversation. I love the atmosphere. We're looking for ways to bring the barbershop atmosphere home with our community options, right?
Really?
So,
can I ask something?
Yeah.
How come you always bring up the barbershop like I don't go to one? You always say it to Josh. I've been to a barbershop.
Since when?
Since London.
What kind of barbershop you going to? You talking about the Discord? Because that was a great segue if you're doing it. This nigga Eddie's like, I've been to a barbershop. The Waving the Red Flag Discord, which you can all be a part of if you become a Patreon
or one easy payment,
or YouTube member. As a part of those memberships, you also get something that I know a lot of you would be interested in: full-length episodes. A lot of people prefer that long-form content as opposed to our more segmented views that we provide for free. So as a part of a Patreon or YouTube membership, you get that long-form content. Our upcoming card game, In All Seriousness, will also be provided at a 10% discount for the members. So if you want to bring the barbershop home to you, make sure you join on Patreon and YouTube.
We got sane people in the Discord.
Do we?
You're not getting that nowhere else.
You know who I would have stacked the jury with? Old black people. I would have put old black people from impoverished neighborhoods up and down the entire jury.
And then much more. See, that's what I was saying about the more conservative black folks. I could see that maybe being
or even black people that aren't even necessarily
conservative.
I would say overall conservative. What you tend to see, in my experience in these situations in the Metro Atlanta area, and also, just full disclosure, I used to work for the court system. On the opposite side of this, to be sure, but for the court system, older black people are, they have fiscally liberal leanings and they have some social conservative leanings, but in terms of policing and all that kind of stuff, they are very pro-police because they're scared in their neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Which is why every Atlanta mayor since Bill Campbell, for example, Atlanta, right? A city that has historically been between 70 and 50% black. Every mayor that has ran since at least Bill Campbell in the mid to late 90s has ran on a pro-police platform. Pro-police, not like I'm just not gonna talk about it. Pro-police, as in like I'm going to add more police. I'm going to give police raises.
Which city was this in?
Memphis, right?
Memphis, okay. Which is how what's our population? Because Memphis is pretty black, right?
Memphis is really black, and Memphis, in terms of city limits, is bigger than Atlanta. So it's a very black city too, and it's a bigger black city. So when you have those situations, it's because older black people typically don't feel safe and they want more policing. So I would stack the deck with them, and they would be like, well, these YNs out here is doing this, and they harassing these old people, and they doing all this.
So we just have to.
Yeah. So okay. I think all of that trickles down into a situation where prosecutors have to, a prosecutor with a conscience, I would say, or a political agenda in a black city, because they're also trying to court the more liberal things. They're going to seek lesser charges that they think they can actually get convictions on, and they're going to stack the deck in a way that allows them to get that less conviction, but they're not going to go for murder. I'm surprised it was even on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Can we contextualize it? Because I don't want to throw a group under the bus with like a statistical average, as opposed to like, is there a way for us to find out what the jury was actually made up of, or is that like sealed for their safety?
Let's find out.
You shouldn't be able to find names.
Yeah, names. But can we find races and ages and things like that? Because that would be. Because I don't want to put it on old black people if it was just an all white jury.
I don't think it was all black people. Also, just to clarify,
but that's what you would do. Yeah,
I'm saying that's what I would do if I'm in Memphis, which is that would be a good way to one of the most dangerous cities in the country. Again, heavy black population. I'm going to say, where's this person from? Oh, they're from this neighborhood. Oh, they're over 65.
Yes. Okay, let's get them.
Yeah.
Well, apparently that information is not available. Actually, as a matter of fact, this jury was selected from outside Memphis due to concerns about extensive patrial publicity. Specifically, jurors were drawn from Chattanooga area and were sequestered during deliberations. However, specific demographic details about the jury, such as race, age, or gender, have not been publicly disclosed. This is common practice in high-profile cases to protect juror privacy and ensure impartiality. So yeah, we can't even see that.
That feels like a bit of a violation of our rights as part of the populace. I feel like we should be able to know that information so we can criticize it. Jury selection after the fact.
I mean,
you don't think so?
Maybe not during, because it's
no, maybe not.
And it's still ongoing.
Yeah, true. But I guess what I mean is, it seems like what can happen is, and yeah, because sometimes when like with an OJ thing where it's like on camera, do we see the jury, or are they all like required to not be ever on camera, kind of a thing? Like, how does that work? And like when the courtroom illustrators, do they ever illustrate those things? There's just a big hole there where you could have an all white jury in a black neighborhood about a crime involving a black person, and we never know about that, and we're never able to push back from like a populist way about jury selection, because jury selection decides like what the fuck is going to happen in terms of justice a lot of times, to exactly the way that Alvin said. Like, that whole process is a negotiated and manipulated process to get something across the line for the defense or the prosecution or whoever.
I get what you're saying, and I agree. You also don't have to have a jury trial. You can have a bench trial. You are entitled to a trial by jury, but you don't have to have a trial by jury. You can have a bench trial.
And how does that tie into what is a bench trial, and two, how does that tie into what I was getting at?
So it's the judge that decides, right? So like if I'm like a lawyer, right, and I'm thinking like, oh, they're going to stack the deck from this, but I feel like I have a good legal case, and I know the judge, I know the judge's case history, all that kind of stuff. I can just say, judge, you decide, bench trial. Like we present an argument to the judge.
Yeah, and we know. And so, for instance, to tie it together, we know the race and the background of a judge and the gender of a judge. So that's a way for us to get clarity into that process and push back against injustices or biases or whatever. Whereas it sounds like we don't have that for juries. I don't know though.
I mean, and it's also it's based on your jury selection, right? Like you can there are ways where you can attempt to address that via the jury selection process to some extent. I also will say that it being too public, that's a double-edged sword. So I'm not saying that I don't agree with you, because I largely do. I just think that it's more difficult to navigate than one might think about superficially, right? So let's say everybody knows who the witnesses are, and this is a police case, and MPD decides to intimidate the fuck out of them.
Witnesses, I'm like, let me just clarify where I'm coming from. The specific names or things that are like identifiable, I agree. So I understand there's two things that we're trying to go. We don't want a jury member who said guilty to something getting killed after the fact because they testified in one direction or the other, but we do
or
want to
or intimidated during the fact.
Exactly. But on the other end, we don't want to go like, hey, there was this trial and not a single black person was on it, or a single Asian person, or whatever was relevant, or you've got a trial with a female victim and it was all male jury or whatever, and we don't know that.
Yeah.
And we're never able to push back on that after.
Yeah. And I think that's
things,
and I think that polls. But I think that's a defense attorney's job to make sure that doesn't happen.
And so I think we might also be talking about. No, I think you understand what I'm saying. That there's two different views. Like, yes, the defense jury the defense lawyer is doing that, but I'm talking about what is our access as people to push back and go, hey, I
don't disagree with you. I'm just saying that I see pretty substantial barriers to that actually being the case for a lot of reasons, regardless of how we do it. So I think that what a person would say is the system is supposed to have safeguards to allow that to kind of come out in the wash to some extent. And clearly, before somebody hops in the comments and saying it, I'm not saying that the justice system is perfect. I'm not saying that it's even close to perfect. I'm not saying that these things typically work out in favor of people that are being judged by the system in any sort of capacity or whatever. But I'm just saying that I think the logic would be that my defense attorney should prevent a jury from being stacked against me, whether that be demographically, whether that be across class lines, whether that be across ideological perspectives. That's what my defense attorney should be doing in theory. And a prosecutor should want to stack the deck. Like it's their job. Full and total. Yeah.
But I agree
with you.
Yeah. And my closing remark would be, the defense, that is their job. But if we're talking about systems, it's bigger than an individual person's job.
100%.
And
yes.
A system can make it more or less difficult for a person within that system to do their job and a person within that system to get justice. So I would say, in theory, that is what is supposed to happen. But we as the people have a right to be able to regulate, is that what is actually happening, and having clarity there. So as much as that's the aim, it's not good enough would be my closing thing.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think that I also 100% think that the simplest way to do that would be to control it with jury selection, because everything that we're going to call out, I'm going to be like, or somebody's going to be like, what about jury safety? What about this? Well, I can figure it's difficult in a lot of contexts to do that in a blanket situation, right? Let's say I'm in a small town. Let's say like I have a jury in like Wilkes County, Georgia, where it's 10,000 people, and
who's getting picked. Yeah.
Yeah. And like the population is X percentage Latino. And I have 2 Latino people on the jury. One of them is X age. One of them is a woman. Like I think it gets difficult, but I agree with you. But
sometimes with these, and fair enough. Sometimes with these ones, it's like, I feel like we throw the baby out with the bathwater with like, oh, it's really complicated. And it's like, you can have context specific regulations, and I'll move on because it's getting towards boring, but like, you can be like, look, the rules for a small town that has a population of fucking 10,000 people and the rules for a major metropolitan area of fucking 10 million people can be different. Like, it's not that complicated.
And I think what I'm saying is, I think that you get into a situation where it becomes different if like you're in like the Bronx versus Manhattan. And I think it might be in like, if you're from this precinct versus that police precinct. And I think if you're scaling that nationally across a country of nearly 400 million people with a lot of localities, where you're looking at different jurisdictions in terms of whether or not it's a municipality, whether or not it's a county, whether or not it's a state. I think it gets difficult. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. I'm saying specifically for this context, right? Specifically for this context. Yes, we have different laws for all that kind of stuff, right? Yes. Yeah. But specifically for this context, if you're trying to scale it out, I think it can be difficult. I think that point source jury selection might be the simplest way, but I think that in terms of the way you're thinking about it,
what is point source?
I'm just saying, I'm the person that's selecting the jury, right? It's being controlled by the jury consultants and the people selecting the jury. Okay. So from that perspective, I think I think it's a lot simpler to say you do your job than it is to do all these things. But to all that point, I think that you're right that it's a good goal to have and that we should be doing it. But I'm just saying that I could like anything that anybody can say from that perspective. It's a lot of whataboutism. What about this? 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 At every single level of what that looks like. It's a permutation that is, I think, exceeding, anybody's base level conversation about that. But I think that in an ideal situation, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to like any situation, the simpler thing is always the simpler thing. So yeah, it's you can kind of go, here's one thing, that's the easiest thing to do. Cool, that's that. This is the bigger thing, and then you have that macro conversation, and it's more complicated. And so then we do it. It's just a harder thing to do. It's a larger task. All right, are we trying to get into a?
Oh, did y'all want to hear like the current status real quick?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So all right, so basically, as of May 7th, Bean, Haley, and Smith were acquitted of all charges, including second-degree murder, aggravated assault, and official misconduct. Martin and Mills had previously pleaded guilty to state charges, including second-degree murder, as part of plea agreements. Now, the current status: Haley remains in custody pending sentencing due to the severity of his federal convictions. Bean and Smith currently under home detention with GPS monitoring while awaiting sentencing. Martin and Mills also awaiting sentencing with dates aligned with the other officers in June. The upcoming sentencing hearing will determine the federal federal penalties for each officer, with potential prison terms varying based on the specific convictions and plea agreements. And the sentencing is happening June 16th.
So at least one of them has pleaded guilty and been charged with second-degree murder. Is that correct? Did I hear that right?
Martin and Mills had previously pleaded guilty to state charges, including second-degree murder. Martin and Mills awaiting sentencing. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then, with all this nuance, this doesn't sound like they were found not, like the entire group was found not guilty.
Okay, so yeah, I'm glad we actually did research that, because the headlines and like the shit that you just read, because they were, it made it seem like, oh, they just got off scot-free.
Okay, so they were found not guilty of a couple of crimes, but at least two of them are being sentenced for second-degree murder.
I mean, but so I think it's because that's the weird thing about it, because I probably do need to like dig deeper, because I think it might be different between state and federal charges, because they were acquitted of charges. I'm just not sure if it was state or federal, but it's saying that they still face severe prison time based on these other convictions that they have not been cleared of yet. I'm just not sure if that's state or federal, depending on like which one for which officer.
Real layman, if you know about this, Alvin, do you get a murder charge at the state and the federal level with two different verdicts, or how does that work? And dumb it down for me, if you know.
I mean, typically that's a jurisdictional thing. Like, it depends on where, how, like all that kind of stuff.
Okay. So it could sometimes be the case that you get charged on both federal and state shit with different verdicts and different sentencing. It could be, but usually like somebody's going to want to do less work. So typically it's like who has the stronger case. It's who has the bandwidth, like all that kind of stuff. But like, and then they just handball it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We trying to hit something slightly less fucking macabre.
It's a red flag.